Here's what a basic game would look like. This would be a 3-player game versus one evil console. Depending on how many heroes you have, depends on how many rooms are added to the board. So, in a 3-hero game, you add 3 different types of rooms. The console would pick the first room and put it on. Then the heroes would pick the second room, orient it any which way that they choose, place it, and then the console would choose the third room, orient it any which way he wishes, and then places it. This would be your main board where your cards and the meters sit. And then from there, the console would put generators out onto the board where he can spawn monsters from. You'd have one generator for each room, plus, if you notice, we've got treasures that are on the board as well. You would have one treasure per each room as well. The heroes would then enter through the dungeon by choosing any exterior opening or entrance from the outside of the board. So for instance, they could enter in from here, 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 or here. They may not enter from here, nor here. Then what they would do is they would take their little start token, count 4 squares up from that entrance, place the start token, and then they could put their 3 heroes anywhere around that start token. The evil console will spawn monsters around each one of his generators, and depending on what type of generator it is, depends on what type of monsters he can spawn. For instance, we have the card here for the Kobold Warrens. Down at the bottom of the card it tells you what types of monsters are allowed to be played for that generator. Plus it tells you right there how many life that generator has, and also what defense it has. So for this generator, if you notice, it takes 2 Kobold Warrens. You can't have just a single Kobold Warren out on the board. You must take them in pairs. So you can't have 1, you can't have 3, but 2 and 4 would be acceptable. These, when you do spawn both of the Warrens, these are the type of creatures that can be pulled from that generator. This here is the Egg Clutch. Just like the Kobold Warrens, it has 1 armor. And if you notice, it too has 3 life. And then it also tells you what type of creatures can be spawned from that generator. That would be the maximum amount of creatures that you could have on the board or in your reserves. If you notice, I've already placed them there. So for instance, the Egg Clutch can have in reserves and spawn 2 hatchlings, 2 whelps, and 2 wormlings. You can never have any more than that amount of monsters for just a single Egg Clutch. It would take an additional Egg Clutch to try to spawn any more monsters than what's listed on the card. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you exactly how you spawn monsters, how much they cost, and how an actual game round works. Now I went ahead and already spawned the monsters around each one of the generators, but what I need to do is show you the card for these creatures to show you exactly how you would go about doing that. You can spawn 4 skull points worth of creatures around each generator at the beginning of the game. Skull points are listed on the card right there. So for instance, this Knucklehead would cost you 1 skull point to generate. Whereas the Iron Scale, he would cost you 2 skull points worth. So you see that the easier creatures, the ones that are easier to defeat, are cheaper to spawn out onto the board, and then the harder creatures to defeat, they do cost more skull points, but typically will stay on the board a little bit longer for the evil console. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you and show you the cards themselves and explain to you how the cards work and how you perform actions and what dice you would roll for each action you did perform. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the Knucklehead card here real quick, and I'll show you how a card would work. Up here in this corner is 7. That means that's his movement points. This is how many action points he has. And then we have attack, armor, will, and dexterity. And depending on the color of this that's inside the square, depending on the color of the square and the number inside that square, tells you how many dice of that color you would roll. Then down at the bottom, we have some text here that tells you what the creature's special ability might be. So for instance, this character could move 7 spaces, and he could perform 1 action. 1 action would be his attack action for this character in particular. So he can only move and attack 1 time. A slightly better character, well, in fact, a much better character, would be the Dragon Priest. The Dragon Priest can move 7, but he's also got 3 action points, and if you notice, he's also got a lot better dice that he could roll. He also has 3 life compared to the Knucklehead, who only had 1 life. And if you look down here at the bottom, he's got little buttons. What those buttons mean is that you can perform whatever the text says behind those buttons, but you have to spend that many action points to perform it. So for instance, for 1 action point, he could perform his Dragon Rage, and it would allow you to do whatever it says there in the text. Up here are our stronger monsters, and I'll show you how those would come in later in the game as the game progresses. So what I would do then is, after I spawn my 4 points, we would choose which character. So for instance, I would choose one of my characters, and then the heroes would choose one of their characters. We would both look at the will, and I'll show you what that is real quick. The will is listed right here on the card, right there. And we would roll those type of dice. For instance, this guy would roll 1 blue and 1 red, and then the heroes would roll theirs as well, and then we would see who had the highest number of stars rolled, and whoever had the highest number of stars would get to go first. So after we've chosen who gets to go first, then play would proceed. We're going to say in this instance that the heroes get to go first. So what the heroes would do then is they would choose one of their characters to activate. So in this case, we're going to activate the dwarf here guy. This guy. So what we would do is we'll look at his card. The dwarf has 6 movement points, and he has 3 actions. Now, something about moving and your actions is that you can move and attack, then move and attack, and then move and attack. There is no movement and then perform your actions. You can actually combine them and do them however you like. You can attack all 3 times and then move away, however you wish. One thing I forgot to mention was down here you see that there's a potion symbol. What that means is that each one of your heroes is going to start with 1 potion. Some heroes might even start with more than that. Potions can be used at any time during the game. You can even use them when the console is rolling. In fact, you can even use them after the console has rolled and he has inflicted damage. You can even use your potion right then. Potions also can be shared between the heroes, which means that if the Hearthsworn fighter has a potion, he can give it to any one of the other heroes that he chooses. So the Hearthsworn fighter, if he wishes, he could move up here and become adjacent to the Iron Scale warrior right here. What we would do then is we would just look at the card of both characters. Let's say that the Hearthsworn fighter wished to attack the Iron Scale. So we would look at the attack, which would be 2 blue dice and 1 red for the Hearthsworn fighter, and then we would look at the armor for the Iron Scale. Now notice that his armor is in gray. What that means is that that is an automatic 2 to his armor. You don't even have to roll for him. But let's say that if it was, like say down here, he would roll 2 blue if it was for will. But in this case, the Iron Scale already has 2 defense. So all that the Hearthsworn fighter would need to do is take 1 red die and 2 of these blues, and he would roll them. What he would have to do is try to get more stars rolled than what armor or defense that the Iron Scale has. So for instance, let's roll. And he succeeded. Now, notice he rolled a 3, which is higher than the defense, but he also rolled a heart. What that means is if you inflict a wound on a evil console's character, and you also roll a heart, or even on the red dice in some cases you can roll a potion, you would actually get a heart added to your character, or a potion, an extra potion added to your character as well. So it's kind of like you hit the creature and then poof, out comes a heart or a potion. It's a neat effect. I really like that. This game is what they claim based off of a video game kind of game. It reminds me a lot of Gauntlet. So that is kind of a neat feature that I like of it. So the Hearthsworn fighter succeeded in hitting the Iron Scale, which he only has 1 life, which would kill him. Now, because he successfully hit and attacked, or that he attacked and hit one of the console's characters, this meter right here would move up 1 space. And this meter would as well. If you notice right here on this meter, there are several circles that say loot. Once the heroes reach any of these circles that say loot, each one of the characters of the heroes get to draw a loot card. Loot cards are ways that you're going to level up your heroes. So in this case, let's say he was successful on all 3 of his actions and he hit the loot. You would draw 3 cards, 1 for each hero. Now the other neat thing about this game is that heroes share everything. So just because, let's say the dwarf drew this card, and let's say the barbarian drew this one, well, they can trade each other and they can build each other up that way. I like that about this game. Share, share, share alike. Now the way these cards work is that they will be attached to your character like this, and you would just tuck them up underneath just like that. And then whatever it says on it, that's what you would add to the attributes of your character. So for instance, this would allow you to have a +1 blue die added, a +1 red armor, and this one here a + red will. So they add, it's the way that you upbuild or level up your character is through these cards. You can never have more than 1 color of card. For instance, I can't put 2 greens on one side. But if I do draw another green card that I like better than this one, I can take this one, throw it out, and place the new green card right in there. Whenever a hero makes it over to one of these treasure boxes on the board, they can spend 1 action to open up that treasure. And then they get whatever. Now, whoever the hero was that opened it, you only draw 1 treasure no matter what. You don't get 3 treasures like you do with the loot. But the person who drew it can give this card to anybody, or he can keep it. The red cards always go at the top. I kind of forgot to tell you, see how that all matches up? See? You got your red, yellow, blue, and green. It's really neat. So the red card will always go at the top. That's the only way you can ever get a red card. Now something that can sometimes happen is that you can draw a treasure card and you got some boo booty, baby. Okay, what happens when you draw a boo booty card is that the treasure box will go away. Bing! And little boo booty here will take his place right here. And he'll go there, and then whatever it says on boo booty's card there is what he'll perform. His attacks or his defense. So after the heroes take turn with 1 hero, then the console gets to activate or attack and move 4 skull points worth of his creatures. So let's say the dwarf is right here. He can move this guy here and then attack, move this guy up and attack, move this guy up and attack, and then move this guy up and attack. So as you see, you just can really gang up on somebody. And then the heroes would activate their next character. Then the console, 4 skull points worth of theirs. Then the heroes theirs. After that, the console would just activate all the rest of whatever monsters are left on the board. As the meter keeps going, every time that the evil guys hit one of the heroes, this meter goes up. And if it hits one of these skull points, then the evil console will take one of these skulls tokens and they'll place it in front of him. What that allows him to do is that on his next turn, which I'm about to show you, the next round, he could spawn extra monsters depending on how many extra skull points he has. So for instance, with this 1 skull point, he could spawn an extra knucklehead for the next round. So once everybody's taken their turns, and this meter keeps going, only when the monsters hit does this meter move. They do not move the loot meter. I need to make sure that you know that. So after an entire round has been played out, let's go ahead and pop off a few of these monsters here and say that the heroes defeated them. Then everything resets, and the console will spawn 4 skull points worth of more monsters around each generator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause it real quick. I'm going to spawn 4 more monsters. Okay, what I did is I went ahead and I put 4 more skull points worth of monsters around each generator. Now you can see, here's wherein lies the problem for the heroes. We've got 4 monsters down here, 5 here, and 5 up here that are all going to keep flooding. Now these monsters probably would have moved down and around through here if we were playing for real, trying to attack the heroes. But in this case, we're just doing a demonstration. As you can see though, regardless, the heroes will start being swarmed if they don't concentrate on destroying generators. Generators are the only way that the console can bring his creatures in. And it's very important that the heroes concentrate on the generators, because If they don't, then chances are that later down the road they're not going to win. Why is that? Well, depending on what kind of a version of the game you are playing, whether that be a 16-bit or a Super, it depends on what this meter here says. Right here, once this meter hits the 16-bit, that is when the mini-boss will enter the game. The mini-boss in this box is Rex. When Rex enters in the board, he can come in from any one of the room generators. So let's plop him there, you know. And then if you're playing a Super game, once this meter reached all the way up to here, that is when the main boss, Starfire, would come in. Once Starfire enters into the game, no more monsters can be spawned from generators. However, if there are still surviving generators, they allow Starfire to have extra points, or turns. So it's very important that you destroy them generators before the main boss comes in, because otherwise you are going to be in a lot of trouble once she comes in, because the entire board changes. That's when this card with the adventure effect really starts taking place. And there's a lot of text on here, and I'm not going to read it all for you, but if you notice, she instantly gets to summon monsters to her aid. Not to mention all this other mean stuff that happens. The heroes instantly catch on fire and whatnots. So that's a basic rundown on the game.